Qin Mu turned back and saw the sun setting. It was about to sink into the desert. "Senior, what do you mean the darkness is coming?" Qin Mu asked. "Could the night here also be faced with the invasion of darkness?" "Senior." The god skeleton fell silent and didn't speak anymore. It had no more breath left. Its will was silenced and scattered away. What remained was only the skeleton with a raised arm pointing into the distance. Qin Mu stood up silently and summoned the chest as well as the dragon Qilin who was shivering on top of it. "Let's go there." The chest followed him in the direction that the true god had pointed. The dragon Qilin collected his courage and asked, "Cult Master, what did the huge skeleton mean when he said that it was you?" "My awakening spell couldn't awaken the spirits of the gods who had died in battle. The skeletons I awakened had no consciousness and could only follow my commands. He could also see this, so he had said that." The dragon Qilin was puzzled. "But I had heard those skeletons talking and calling him General. They could talk because I spoke through their mouths. I didn't want him to feel lonely and feel that only he was left from High Emperor era." Qin Mu turned back and looked at the god skeleton that was sitting with the battle flag and guarding the mausoleum. He then looked away and said with a calm expression, however, he noticed, though he didn't expose it. Actually, in his heart, there should still be some hope that the ones talking were his comrades and not me. The dragon Qilin couldn't understand such feelings, so he just laid down on the chest to sleep while muttering, "I'm afraid of these things the most. Back then at Liu family, I had nightmares for a few days." The sky became darker and darker. Qin Mu quickened his footsteps while the sun set in the desert. Darkness flooded over from the west and caught up to them in an instant, drowning them out. Qin Mu was stunned. The world was swallowed by the darkness, just like another great ruins. The only difference was that when in great ruins it was daytime, it was nighttime here. Suddenly, Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly. I understand the source of the darkness." Slight noises came from the bottom of the chest, and Qin Mu stopped to look under the chest. He saw a youth without both legs hugging onto the leg of the chest. "Grandmaster." Qin Mu broke into a smile, "I trust you have been well." Pan Gongso's face was ashen as he spat out, "Qin brat, this goddamn world is toying with me. Kill me, cut my flesh, just do whatever you want with me." Qin Mu smiled pleasantly. "Why would I cut your flesh? Stop fooling around. Killing is much simpler than cutting." A bright light shone in the darkness. It was a divine light that could pass through the darkness. Qin Mu's heart almost leaped out his throat, and he hurriedly jumped onto the chest. His body sank it down, sending it and Pan Gongso who was below into the yellow sand. "What are you doing?" Pan Gongso cried out in a panic. "Shut up. Shingan's eyes have entered this place." Qin Mu shouted back in a low voice. A beam of light from an eyeball swept past the desert. Not finding anything, it flew forward. Soon, another eyeball flew over, and the two big eyeballs met in the sky. They paused for a moment. Another faint glow then flew quickly from afar and paused in midair. It was the head of a youth. It had no eyeballs, but the two floating ones soon entered the eye sockets. "You guys are close by?" The head in the sky suddenly laughed coldly and said, "Divine Physician Qin, Grandmaster, you guys stole my chest and want to escape my pursuit. Aren't you underestimating me too much?" Suddenly, the yellow sand in the surroundings hardened, and Qin Mu felt it press tighter and tighter around him. He knew that things were bad and immediately executed Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. His vital qi burst forth around his body, transforming into elegant runes that fell into a formation under the sand. Pan Gongso's blood ran cold, and he hissed, "You're going to execute a teleportation divine art in such a place? You don't want to live, but I want to. Over here." Shingan's head, which was in midair, screeched, and his eyes shot out divine lights to sweep over the land. Hum. The place where Qin Mu was suddenly collapsed and became a huge pit. Next, the two divine lights shot into the huge pit and vaporized a huge portion of the yellow sand. Pan Gongso's scalp crawled as he was teleported away with the chest by Qin Mu. He then shouted out, "Cult Master Qin, your abilities are lacking. We didn't teleport too far. Shut up, it's Fatty Dragon that's too heavy. Qin Mu gritted his teeth and executed the teleportation divine out again. The runes shone brightly. Behind, a head was flying over with 2 beams of light going over the desert, vaporizing everything they passed. Qin Mu executed his teleportation divine arts until he was out of magic power. He then pointed in a direction and said, "Grandmaster, head over there." Pan Gong So hurriedly took over. He brought out small flags from his Dao Tai sack which were imprinted with teleportation runes. Once activated, the flags fluttered and covered them. They vanished before the divine lights from Shingan's eyes could hit them. Pan Gong So had entered Heavenly Devil Cult in one life and had almost become the Heavenly Devil Cult master, so he was no stranger to the teleportation divine out of Heavenly Devil Cult. He teleported them over and over again, and his magic power was also exhausted rapidly. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. "Cult Master Qin, I'll be out of magic power soon. Are we there yet?" He executed the last of his magic power and moved them once more. When the teleportation formation markings dispersed, light shone brightly in everyone's eyes as they appeared in a city. The walls were stunning, decorated with lanterns and colored banners. The 2 of them raised their heads to look and couldn't help becoming flabbergasted. On top of the high buildings and towers of the city in darkness, there stood gods that were 300 yards tall. They either had 4 heads and 8 arms, or 3 heads and 6 arms. There was also those with bird heads and those with beast heads. Some of the gods looked like black tortoise, vermilion bird, white tiger, or green dragon. They gave off intense divine light that forced back the darkness. The city was incomparably bustling with people coming to and fro. They looked as though they had suddenly appeared, squeezing past Qin Mu and the big chest while full of smiles. "That's not right, this isn't right. This place was clearly a desert, so why is there a city? If there are really that many people here, why would no one have buried the skeletons of those gods? And why are there so many gods here?" Qin Mu had a splitting headache, so he suddenly grabbed the hand of a girl passing by him. That girl saw that he didn't look too bad and burst out laughing. "Lecher, what are you grabbing my hand for?" "Good sister, what year is this?" Qin Mu asked with a pale face. The girl smiled and said, "You sure have a way of flirting. The year now is without a doubt High Emperor year 24,000. Today is none other than the 26,000th birthday of High Emperor." "The 26,000th birthday of High Emperor?" Qin Mu was stunned. The year in which he was born was 20,000 years after the fall of founding emperor era, which had lasted for some 10 to 20,000 years itself. Didn't it then mean that they were 30-40,000 years back in time? One teleportation from Pan Gong So had sent them that many years back. Under the chest, Pan Gong So was also at a loss. An indescribably weird feeling took shape in his heart. He had merely executed his teleportation flags with the last of his magic power before it ran out, so how could he have teleported himself 30-40,000 years back? It had to be a dream. He was about to pinch himself when a sharp pain came from the place where his legs had been cut off, and he couldn't help crying out in pain. Qin Mu pulled out the long sword that he had stabbed into his broken leg and muttered, "It's painful, so this isn't a dream. Could we be experiencing another echo of history? We are currently in another of those things." The girl in front of him had seen him stab the youth with the broken legs under the chest and was angered. How could you bully a handicapped person? What's the point of having good looks if you're like that? Cruel guy." Once she said that, she turned to leave. "Good sister, wait a minute," Qin Mu said in a hurry to stop her. When the girl heard him, she couldn't bear to reject him. She stopped and turned around to see him coming close and raising his hand to cup her face. The girl blushed and squirmed under his touch. "What are you doing? We just met for the first time, so how can we be so intimate? And you are very weird. You have a weird chest and a huge pig, and you bully even a handicapped person. My father and my brother won't like you. My father is very powerful, and my brother is also very powerful, so they will beat you to death. Don't be like this." Qin Mu was dumbstruck. His mind was blown as though the lightning from heaven had struck his head. It's real. You are a living person, one of flesh and blood. This isn't an echo of history. We have really returned to the past, back to High Emperor era. Is time travel really possible? The girl was puzzled by his words and asked, "What are you saying? What's an echo of history? What past? What's time tra?" Before she could voice all the questions she had, a young couple nestled against each other walked over. The young man of the pair cried out in astonishment, "Chua, this is..." The young girl blushed and said in a low voice, "Brother, I think I have someone I like." Pan Gong So crawled out from under the chest, planning to bewitch the dragon Qin into licking the wound on his broken leg when he was struck by a thunderbolt from the girl's worst. He spat on the ground. Liking him just like this? So what if he's attractive? He's impressive looking but useless. Qin Mu was in a daze. When the young man saw it, he couldn't help shaking his head. He whispered to the young girl called Chua, "This person doesn't look like he has any spirit. There are so many talented youths in the world, so why should you like him?" The girl beside him smiled and said, "Sister, don't listen to your brother, he always likes to introduce those so-called talents and doesn't care about who you like. That reminds me, how long have you known each other?" The young girl lowered her head and said bashfully, "Only just." The woman covered her mouth with her sleeves, speechless. "Just met and you already like him?" The young man laughed from extreme anger and gave Qin Mu a dark look. "The daughter of our Bai family should be a hero of the current times. Do you think you are worthy of my sister?" he shouted out. His aura burst forth, and it was truly world-shaking. Bright rays of light shone behind him, and the primordial spirit of a human with a dragon's head and a dragon's tail gradually rose from them. It radiated a heart-gripping aura. Pan Gong So opened his mouth wide and looked it in astonishment. True dragon primordial spirit. That's not right, shouldn't it be green dragon primordial spirit? He isn't of the four great spirit bodies, how could it be? He cried out. Qin Mu woke up and also looked at the youth's primordial spirit. His heart trembled as he thought, of course, this world doesn't only have the four great spirit bodies, there are also others. The youth stretched out his hand, which mixed with the dragon's claws and shook, to grab Qin Mu. Lightning was twisting around his hand. "Come, let me test your abilities." As his claws moved, the texture of his corporeal body transformed as all kinds of rune markings appearing on it. In a single strike, 100 types of divine art transformations were actually hidden between the moving fingers. His attack belonged to the extremely top-notch corporeal body divine arts. Qin Mu retreated in a hurry and avoided the strike. The youth gently touched his 5 fingers together, and the space next to Qin Mu exploded with claps of thunder, blowing him high up into the sky. The youth leaped up and sprinted straight at Qin Mu. Pan Gong So raised his head to look upwards in astonishment. This person with the surname Bai is from the dragon race. Otherwise, he couldn't have cultivated the corporeal body divine arts of the dragons to such an exquisite level. He isn't old yet, he has already cultivated the celestial being realm. Were all the people of High Emperor era so powerful? Pan Gong So was, after all, an old monster that had lived for 10,000 years. He had roamed overseas and met experts of the dragons. He knew how strong they were, and that for a person to cultivate the celestial being realm at such a young age was truly rare. The girl Chua panicked and said in a hurry, "Brother, stop hurting him." Beside her, the woman stopped her and said with a smile, "Your brother is doing this for your own good, to see if this youth is worthy for you. Once your brother approves of him, your father won't stop you guys. Think, if your father was the one making the move, your little lover here would end up with countless broken bones." Bai Chua came to that realization and smiled. Sister-in-law is still the clever one. However, she had a worried look. Brother is so powerful. What if he hurts him? The woman smiled and said, "Don't worry. Your brother has strong cultivation and knows how to act appropriately. He'll use the same cultivation level as your little lover, so he won't hurt him." In the air, Qin Mu sprinted here and there, but the young man's abilities were simply so strong that it was terrifying. With the trembling of his fingers and palm, the corporeal body divine art that burst forth was way stronger than spell divine arts. The range of his attacks was up to 300 yards, and they were also extremely fast, quickly forcing him to open all his divine treasures. Bang, bang, bang. 3 consecutive explosions rang out in his body, and the young man revealed a disappointed expression as he shook his head. 6-direction realm? Your cultivation is too weak. Fine, I'll fight with you on 6-direction realm and see how's your aptitude and comprehension. He sealed his celestial being divine's treasure and his 7 stars divine treasure. The primordial spirit behind him instantly vanished, but even so, his battle power was astonishing. The transformations between his fingers and palm were unpredictable as he attacked Qin Mu. Pan Gongso watched it unfold with astonishment. This young man of Bai family has extremely great talent, and his corporeal body divine art is above mine. When fighting on the same realm, I wouldn't be able to win. However, isn't that rascal Qin on 7 stars realm? As he thought that, a world-shaking explosion rang out in midair, and the young man with the surname Bai was blown away by Qin Mu like a shooting star. A stream of light streaked across the sky above the majestic city. The 2 girls below were stunned. However, Pan Gongso looked as if he found it natural and thought resentfully, Qin brat, that rascal is on 7 stars realm, and I'm also on 7 stars realm. If I took a punch from him head-on, even my bones would break, yet you genius faced it with 6 directions realm? See how tragic you are now. The young man came back at an even faster speed and shouted angrily, 6 directions realm can't have such strong magic power and corporeal body. You are definitely on 7 stars realm, so I'll fight you on 7 stars realm. Boom! The young man was sent flying once more, and a god that was standing upright on a building stretched out his hand to catch him. With a smile, he said, young city lord Qingfu was blown back again. Have you met your match? The young man by Qingfu laughed from anger as he flew away from the palm and rushed toward Qin Mu. So what if your magic power is vigorous? See my divine arts? He sprinted all the way back, and his fist skill transformed unpredictably as he attacked Qin Mu with a sky full of dragon claws. Gale and thunder came pouncing on Qin Mu's face, and his clothes fluttered. There was a sense of something fierce about to pounce on him. He immediately threw aside his distracting thoughts and executed Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. His eyes lit up, and he couldn't help becoming excited. How are the paths, skills, and divine arts of High Emperor era compared to the later generations? Let's see the result once and for all. Tempest of the 9 Dragons. The 2 of them clashed, and ripples instantly spread out. The dragon-shaped streams of air flowed in all directions at great speed. Ang! Suddenly, dragon-shaped energy burst forth in all directions, and 10,000 dragons roared. The dragon energy scattered around in the air and fought one another. The 2 stepped on the dragons and passed by the majestic gods in the city. Those gods watched while smiling at their fight, exclaiming endlessly in admiration. In the city below, countless passers-by stopped to raise their heads to see what was happening. There were also quite a number of people who flew into the sky to get a better look. A god smiled and said, the rest of you go down, don't disturb them. Let me light them up and let you guys see more clearly. Once he said that, his eyes shone, and 2 thick pillars of light shone onto Qin Mu and Bai Qingfu. Suddenly, another god walked over. His features were might, and his eyes were those of a dragon, mighty and extraordinary. City Lord Bai, most of the gods greeted. That god waved his hand and looked at Qin Mu. This youth is very remarkable, though his methods are from Buddhism. However, how is his magic power that vigorous? His technique also has the aura of my dragon race. Weird, truly weird, he said with astonishment. Bai Qingfu fought for a long period of time, but couldn't gain any advantage. Cross swords with spirit weapons, he then shouted out. Dragon-shaped vital chi flew out with a dragon bead swirling inside it. Countless sharp swords instantly flew out of the dragon bead and attacked Qin Mu like dragons. The youth had held a portion of his magic power back as his intention was to see the paths, skills, and divine arts of High Emperor era. Because of that, he hadn't used his full strength. However, Bai Qingfu's dragon swords were abnormally sharp, so he had no choice but to execute his full power. Even though his sword skills are exquisite, there are only 14 basic sword skills. He hasn't jumped out of the marvel of the 14 basic sword skills. Qin Mu took a glance and saw the real situation of Bai Qingfu. He smacked his Dao Tai sack and his sword pellet flew out. He caught it, and 8,000 swords flowed out from the gap between his fingers like flowing sand. In midair, sword skills clashed and Bai Qingfu grunted. He suffered over 100 sword wounds and fell from the sky. Qin Mu straightened a finger, and countless flying swords flew back, gathering together in the air above his finger. They then transformed back into a spinning sword pellet. Superb sword skill! Cheers erupted from the surroundings, and Qin Mu looked around to see 100 gods gathered around. Their majestic figures flickered against the contrast of the night sky. Astonished, Qin Mu greeted his surroundings. A loud laugh rang out as a middle-aged man took wide steps in the air as though he was walking on flat ground. He came right to Qin Mu, who was forced to raise his head to look up at him. Truly a young talent. The middle-aged man laughed loudly. Whose disciple are you? Your abilities are truly impressive, and you seem to be cultivating the abilities of my dragon race. Qin Mu's thoughts ran through many options before he hurriedly said, I'm Qin Mu and I came to this place by accident. I have received a dragon's nest with some writings of the dragon race, so I have cultivated techniques of the dragon race. Bai Qingfu flew over and praised him sincerely. Truly superb abilities. You could stand out as brilliant even in the celestial heavens. Old brother Qin, this is my father, Bai Yuting, the city lord of this 100 Prosperities city. Qin Mu immediately greeted him. Suddenly, the sound of battle drums came from the darkness outside. Bai Yuting's expression became grim, and he said solemnly, It's from Fomalhaut. The extraterritorial devils are invading again. Leave 4 men to guard the 4 gates while the rest follow me to face the enemy. He led all the gods into the distance. Qin Mu was slightly stunned. Fomalhaut? Wasn't that god skeleton that I awakened the high official of Fomalhaut? He looked in the direction where Bai Yuting and the rest had left and saw countless bright lanterns coming from the darkness, forming a silver line. It was Fomalhaut, a divine city in the sky. Ever since the sky turned dark, evil devils frequently invade, but there's no need to bother, Bai Qingfu said. Old brother Qin's sword skills are even superior to my fist skills. I wonder if you can teach me. Qin Mu smiled at him. I have some dragon writings that I don't understand and would like brother Bai to teach me as well. When they landed on the ground, Pan Gongso's expression changed slightly when he heard what they were saying. He immediately shook his head at Qin Mu and transmitted his voice to him anxiously. Be careful of changing history or we might not be able to get back. Qin Mu brought the chest after Bai Qingfu, Bai Chua, and the rest to the manor of 100 Prosperities city. On the way, he kept thinking about Pan Gongso's words, and his heart was uneasy. Even though Pan Gongso was his arch-nemesis, he was an old monster that had lived for 10,000 years. His knowledge was vast, and his words made a certain sense. The era that they were in now had ended at least 30,000 years ago. High Emperor era was already on the verge of collapse, so it was a hopeless situation. They had come to this place on Shingan's chest for some reason, but if they did something that changed the history, wouldn't the whole history be rewritten? If history was rewritten, would founding Emperor era have existed? Would eternal peace still be around? The most crucial point was, would they still be around? Any change to a single strand of hair could result in a world-turning change to the later generations. Brother Qin, Brother Pan, don't worry. Fomalhaut surrounds and protects the heaven, so their abilities are extremely strong, and the abilities of celestial heavens are even more terrifying. With High Emperor personally overseeing the fight, there will be no problems. Bai Qingfu invited them to take their seats, and the lanterns were lit up. Dragon beads hung in the sky and lighted the whole place as if it was the day. Bai Qingfu saw that Qin Mu's expression wasn't too good and guessed that he was worried about the safety of the front lines. He thus consoled him. Fomalhaut has fought against them numerous times, so they won't let the enemy pass them. Even though the extraterritorial devils belong to a really strong power, our 100 prosperities city isn't to be trifled with. Fomalhaut is very strong, one of the 4 great troops of the celestial heavens. Qin Mu recalled the skeletons of Fomalhaut's gods in the Golden Desert and grew even more uneasy. Those gods of Fomalhaut had died in battle while protecting their homeland. Who knew if that battle was the current one? Maybe, we are already part of history, so no matter what we do, things that happened will happen. Qin Mu suddenly had a thought. Maybe I'm currently situated in the strangeness of great ruins. I once experienced the echo of history, so could all this be the echo of time and space? Grandmaster's teleportation divine art couldn't be so powerful as to send us tens of thousands of years ago. Maybe this is merely the echo of time and space due to the strangeness of great ruins. The time and space reflected into the future, onto our bodies. After daybreak, everything will vanish and no matter what we do, the history will run its course. After deciding that, he calmed down, the boulder off his shoulders having been lifted. He chatted happily with the brother and sister, exchanging pointers on sword skills with them. The siblings were ineffably astonished. Bingfu cried out, after the 14 basic sword skills, there are 4 more basic sword skills? Who founded them? Who has such talent and passion? Qin Mu muttered irresolutely for a moment before telling the truth. The one that founded 15th sword form, 16th sword form, and 17th sword form was a saint that appears once every 500 years. His talent and passion are so great that even I admire him endlessly. A saint that appears once every 500 years. Baichua was bewildered and asked, Brother Mu, is there perhaps a story behind saints that appears once every 500 years? Qin Mu also didn't know much about it. I've heard that every 500 years in this world, there will be a genius overflowing with innate talent. He will establish his virtue, merit, and ideas in writing, becoming the saint. That's why he will be called the saint that appears once every 500 years. As for where this saying comes from, I do not know. I see. The brother and sister came to realization. The wife of Bingfu smiled and said, Our 100 prosperities city is small and doesn't even enter the ranking of the divine cities, so we don't know about such a saying. Old brother Qin must have come from a big region and know a lot. Baichua became anxious and whispered, Sister-in-law, will he despise me for being a person from a small region? Bingfu's wife gave a soft laugh. Even though 100 Prosperities City is a small region, you're the little princess of Bai family, after all, so your status is high enough. Don't worry. What's more, having an affinity with each other is more important than being well-matched in terms of social status. Only then did Baichua ease up. Bingfu was curious. Old brother Qin said that the 3 sword forms were founded by the saint. In that case, who founded the 18th sword form? Qin Mu blushed and said, the 18th sword form was founded by me accidentally. Everyone's heart trembled violently. And even Pan Gongso's ashen face filled with astonishment. His heart was full of jealousy and admiration. Qin Brat is truly powerful, to actually found a basic sword form and change the path and skill of heaven and earth. We're screwed, this reckless brat is imparting the sword skills of the later generation to the predecessors and changing history. We are all going to vanish. Qin Mu and the rest talked with cheeriness and wit. Later, he took out the true dragon's nest and invited Bingfu and Baichua inside where he asked them to help him decode the writings. Even though he had decoded quite a number of them, there were still numerous dragon writings that he couldn't figure out. Bingfu and Baichua were of the dragon race. When Bingfu had exchanged blows with him, he had used the divine arts of a true dragon, making it clear that his bloodline was extremely high. This video will end here.